Okay, wow. I gotta be honest. This news about Quincy Jones passing, it really hit me harder than I thought it would. Like obviously we all
Yeah.
know he was a legend and everything. But I think I never really realized how much his work was. Like literally the soundtrack to our entire lives.
It is funny how that happens, isn't it? You grow up with all these iconic songs and these TV shows you love, and then years later you realize there was this one person, like this one dude behind so much of it, Quincy Jones, like a true Renaissance man, you
Right,
know?
right. It's like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Uh-huh.
How did I not know Quincy Jones was a producer on that? It just blew my mind. And then
Yeah, sure.
we can't forget his daughter, Rashida Jones, either. Parks and Rec, anyone, come on. This man's reach is unbelievable.
And let's not forget Michael Jackson. Thriller just shaped a generation, and Quincy was the maestro behind that. But his story goes so much deeper than just that. It's a journey that starts back in 1933. On the rough streets of Chicago during the Great Depression.
Yeah, I was reading about his childhood. It sounds pretty intense. His mom really struggled with mental illness, and he got mixed up in some petty crimes. Not exactly the kind of start you'd picture for someone who would go on to win 28 Grammys.
Oh, absolutely. But then at 11 years old, everything changed. He discovers music, finds an upright piano at a community center, and boom, that's it. He's hooked. It just shows you the power of music, right? How it can totally transform lives.
And just get this. Just 3 years later, he's jamming with Ray Charles. This kid is 14 years old playing jazz in clubs. I can't even imagine that. The amount of talent this guy had from such a young age, it just blows my mind.
You know what's really fascinating to me is how all that early exposure to so many different types of music, jazz, blues, gospel, you name it, that really shaped his sound. You can hear those influences all throughout his career. It doesn't matter if he's scoring a film, writing a TV theme song, or producing a pop album, it's there.
Totally. Like he absorbed all those different sounds and blended them together into something completely unique. Speaking of film scores, did you know he got 3 Oscar nominations? The Slender Thread in Cold Blood the Pawnbroker. We've probably seen some of these movies, right?
Yeah.
And all this time, it was Quincy Jones behind the music, creating that whole atmosphere, giving us all those emotions we felt while we were watching. I had no clue.
And you have to think about the context, too. This is the 1960s. Hollywood was a totally different place. And then you have this young black composer, Quincy Jones, just breaking down barrier after barrier. He even became the first black musical director for the Academy Awards in 1971. Talk about being a pioneer.
It's incredible how he never stopped pushing boundaries, even when he was facing so much adversity, like in the 70s when he had 2 brain aneurysms,
Yeah.
which meant he couldn't play the trumpet anymore. That's like devastating for any musician.
Totally devastating. A brain aneurysm, you know? It's
Yeah.
basically like a bulge in a blood vessel in your brain. They can be so serious. And in Quincy's case, it really affected his ability to play. But here's the thing. He didn't let it stop him. He adapted. He shifted his focus. And actually, his career just flourished even more.
That is some serious resilience right there. Speaking of iconic moments, though, we can't forget those TV theme songs that are like permanently stuck in our brains.
Yeah.
The Bill Cosby Show, Sanford and Son. You hear those tunes once and you never forget them. And then there's Roots with that Emmy-winning score. I still get chills thinking about that miniseries.
You know what's really incredible about that is he captured the whole feeling of each show with his music. The Cosby Show has this warm, inviting sound. Sanford and Son is funky and playful. And Roots is so powerful and emotionally resonant. He wasn't just composing music. He was creating these whole sonic landscapes that took the storytelling to another level.
It's true. Yeah, it's like he had this superpower to take the soul of a project and turn it into music. But then the 80s hit, and his work with Michael Jackson, that's when things just exploded.
Oh, yeah. Off the Wall, Thriller, Bad. Those albums weren't just hits. They were like cultural earthquakes. And Quincy was the architect, the one shaping the sound, pushing boundaries and creating this fusion of pop and funk rock and soul that the world had never heard before.
For us millennials, it's hard to explain the impact of Thriller.
Yeah.
I mean, the videos, the dance moves, the clothes, it was everywhere. I remember trying to moonwalk in the schoolyard and those red leather jackets. I mean, come on.
Totally iconic.
And even today, you still see artists referencing Thriller in their music and their style.
What's really interesting is that Thriller wasn't just about the music. It was a whole phenomenon, a visual experience that captured everyone's imaginations. And Quincy was a huge part of that. He was the one pushing for these groundbreaking videos, working with amazing choreographers. And he knew how powerful visuals could be for shaping an artist's image.
Yeah, he had this vision for the whole package, and he made it a reality with Thriller. But even beyond all the mega hits, what always gets me about Quincy's work with Michael Jackson, is how it connected with people on such a deep level. Those songs weren't just catchy tunes. They were anthems about hope and love and believing in yourself. That spoke to a whole generation.
Absolutely. And then, of course, you have We Are the World, that incredible charity single that brought together like every major star at the time to raise money and awareness for the famine in Africa. It wasn't just a song, it was a whole global movement. It showed the power of music to unite people and to inspire action.
And Quincy was the mastermind behind the whole thing. He got all those huge egos in the same room. He made the recording happen, and he turned it into this cultural phenomenon. It's pretty amazing to think about the impact that one song had. It raised millions of dollars, and it put a spotlight on this humanitarian crisis that needed everyone's attention.
It wasn't just about the music for him. It was about using his platform to do good, to actually make a difference in the world. And that's something you see throughout his career, this commitment to social justice, to equality, to using his voice to help other people's voices be heard.
It's so inspiring, right? To see someone who achieves so much success and still uses their influence to try to make the world a better place. And the incredible thing is his influence didn't stop there. He went on to produce Sinatra's L.A. is My Lady. He worked with Miles Davis on his final album. The list goes on and on.
Sinatra and Miles Davis. Those are like two completely opposite ends of the musical spectrum. It just shows how versatile Quincy was, his ability to work across different genres and to bring out the best in every artist he collaborated with.
It's crazy, right? We started this whole thing talking about Fresh Prince. And it turns out Quincy was a producer on that show, too. It's like everything we loved growing up has this Quincy Jones connection.
It really does. You can't deny the impact of his career, his influence on so many different parts of pop culture. He wasn't just a musician. He was a producer, a composer, a mentor, a cultural icon.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about his career, which is obviously massive. But what about his personal life? It seems like it was just as interesting and complicated as his professional one. 3 marriages, 7 children. That's a lot to unpack.
Well, his autobiography, Q, is a really fascinating read. He doesn't hold anything back. He talks about his childhood and his rise to fame, his relationships, his successes, his failures. It's a really honest and personal look at the man behind the music.
And we can't forget that 2 of his children are actresses we all know and love, Kedaya and Rashida Jones. They both made their own mark in Hollywood, carrying on the family legacy in their own ways.
It's pretty amazing to see how his legacy goes beyond just his own achievements and lives on in his kids. They've each found their own paths, but you can definitely see their dad's influence in their creativity and their passion for what they do.
I know, right? It's pretty mind-blowing. We've been talking for a while now, and we've only just scratched the surface of Quincy Jones's life and all his work. It's just so much to take in. You know, the music, the films, the TV shows, his activism, his family. It's almost overwhelming.
It really is. And that's what makes him so fascinating, this life full of creativity, passion, and always pushing to break down barriers. And through it all, he never lost sight of one thing, the power of music to connect with people, to make real change in the world, to make it a better place.
You know what? Hearing about We Are the World again, it really got to me and reminded me that music can be so much more than just something we listen to. It can actually be a force for good, a way to bring people together and make a difference.
It's true. That's a message that never gets old. And it feels especially important today when the world feels so divided sometimes. Music has this amazing ability to cut through all the differences and create a sense of unity. And Quincy Jones understood that better than anyone, I think.
So where do we even go from here? We've learned so much about Quincy Jones in this deep dive. But I still feel like there's so much more to discover. What do you think is the best way for us to keep learning about his legacy?
I think it's about going beyond the hits, the songs that we already know and love. Dig into his whole discography, explore those albums that maybe aren't as famous. You never know, you might find some hidden gems. Listen to his film scores, watch the movies and TV shows that he worked on. Really pay attention to how his music shapes the whole mood, how it brings out the emotions of the story.
It's like going on a treasure hunt, uncovering all these sides to his musical genius. And who knows, maybe we'll even find some new favorites. I know I'm feeling inspired to go back and watch some of those old Fresh Prince episodes and listen to the theme song again, but now with a whole new appreciation, knowing who was behind it all.
And don't forget about Q, his autobiography. It's a must-read for anyone. Who wants to get to know the man behind the music, the struggles he went through, the successes he celebrated, and all the lessons he learned along the way?
That sounds like a journey worth taking, and I have a feeling it's a journey that Quincy Jones would want us to take. To keep exploring, to keep learning, to keep the music playing.
Absolutely. So to honor his memory, let's all do that. Let's put on our favorite Quincy Jones track, turn it up, and just let his music wash over us.
And let's remember all the lessons he taught us, not just through his music, but through his whole life. Be fearless with your creativity. Use your voice to do something good in the world, and never, ever stop believing in the power of music to change the world.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone, into the incredible life and legacy of Quincy Jones. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep the music playing.